Okay, so last presentation of the day. Andrea is going to take us, through the whole idea of marketplaces. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. My name is Andrea. I'm co-founder with Pierluigi of Data Boutique, and I'm the man standing between you and the break. So bear with me with that. All right, so today we saw many techniques, implications, constructions, way to deploy the web scraping as a whole task, as an individual task of someone willing to extract data and going through the entire journey. What I want to go through with you today is also to take a side watch of what's happening also to others that are doing the same thing and try a different approach, not only consider what we are doing, but taking a look to what also is happening to all the others doing the web scraping. So before we start, and let me take a step back and see how we ever came to the idea of a data marketplace. So back 10 years ago, this is us. We were just a normal web scraping company. We were this little bot here trying to overcome some barriers that prevented us from reaching the target website, so sustaining the cost to overcome this wall, and ideally reselling to willing buyers, ideally for a profit of it, okay? And over the course of 10 years, things grew, the economy was great, demand was growing. Demand was growing because there was just simply more money into e-commerce. There were more brands, there were more interest for insight, since the stakes were bigger. And then more recently, AI came into play. Great new technology, able to have a dialogue with data, able to create new answers, and thus was hungry for new data because technology needed something to talk to, right? So there's just more data, more demand for web scraping. Fantastic. And not only more demand, but also more websites changing more frequently, more industries coming to e-commerce. Come from Europe, and groceries were not a thing 10 years ago online. Today, it starts to become something. There are more websites to scrape, so there's more things to scrape, more people demanding things to scrape. That's fantastic. So in our little business, we had more people coming in and demanding more jobs. Now the problem was that after they came with this grandiose design, we want to see all the products, we want to have all the awareness of the entire market, they actually realized it was too costly and needed to either, in the best case scenario, downsize their expectations, but more often to not pursue the project at all. These are money that never entered the web scraping economy, which, okay, some of those went to competition, fair market, but what it really struggled with us is those applications that we could not serve. I mean, our job was to deliver information to those that make value out of it, and we could not make it. And this didn't even see the light. So there's this huge amount of data, more data coming in, piling up, and this huge demand for it, but it's still inefficient to take this information from the place where it's sitting in their own website, somehow streamline it and deliver it. It was, in many cases, this was not something we could actually achieve, and this is something that hurt us. We could, of course, do more business, but this is also what we do as a mission, right? So we try to ask ourselves, why is it still inefficient? With all the advancement in technology, why is it still so expensive and time-consuming to do so? So, okay, so ideally to serve everyone, we need large-scale extractions. Now, large-scale extraction, by the definition of being large-scale, tend to be also expensive, as we saw in some presentations before. So what happens? That usually, okay, no large-scale, smaller, single-purpose extraction, okay? So many big designs tend to be scaled down to a smaller extraction that serves one purpose. Now, the problem of serving one purpose is that they serve one purpose. They're difficult to use in another purpose, even if the website is the same, because we're taking too narrow a scope in this, or not enough frequency, or not the exact field, or we don't go deep enough in the product page, okay? So when there are more needs, then we build another one, okay? Or competition builds another one, or anyone else builds another one. There's a proliferation of multiple scrapes being built. And with no economies of scale, with technology help us go through the barriers, barriers are always higher. AI is helping in somehow decrease the marginal cost, but it still doesn't make the turn. It still doesn't significantly change. And the unit costs are not as far, when you purchase it, unit costs are not as far from building it in-house. So guess what? You build it in-house because you have more control on the details. So in many use cases are done in-house, and being done in-house are still proliferator. It's not the problem that they don't buy from us or from any other data provider. The problem is that they still cost, even if you do it in-house. And so what happens is when we think we are the only ones scraping this single website, in reality there's a cloud of others, everyone doing the same or similarly the same, trying to access the same website, each sustaining the cost of passing the wall at the barriers to access this information, each unaware of what the others are doing because we are concentrating in extracting our own data set with our own mission, with our own single purpose or narrow purpose extraction. So yeah, that is technically what is happening. If you are extracting information for a very popular website, you're not alone. Okay, I'm sure that the overlap of information collected even within this room, it is very, very high for frequently asked websites. So then something happened very unexpectedly. Okay, so this is us again, and one day I get a phone call from a competitor, panicking, says, okay, a website is down, I'm short-staffed, sell me yours. I need to deliver, so just sell me yours. I know we're competing in this, nobody said it before, it's the unwritten law, but just sell me yours. So at the beginning I thought, oh, competitor, yeah, I could get the same clients and in this kind of competing mindset, but then actually I thought, that is actually genius, right? That is, we are all sustaining, it's very inefficient because we're all redoing the same thing. And while we could somehow look at what the needs of others are and make it a little bit more efficient, I could serve their needs as well, of course, readapting what the pricing is, and do it. And this is exactly what happened. We went from in the upper, this is what we were doing, building similar things to our competitors, collecting the same information or very similar information, and building similar solutions, regardless if we say that we're unique. Okay. And what we turned out instead doing was concentrating in doing one thing where we are good and trying to collaborate and switch from competition to collaboration with other competitors. And we talked a little bit with others as well, and it turned out it was a welcome idea, not to be competing for the same stuff, but actually sort of verticalizing and specializing. And we just needed a way to coordinate our efforts, and so after some thoughts, this coordination layer sort of puts together the efforts of each of the contributor that, of course, needs to bear the cost, the increasing costs due to, thank you, anti-bots, right? The increasing costs of accessing information, but streaming more traffic, more usage from the same extractor, because we are together serving more people, more end usages, because we specialize in doing one thing and not necessarily competing. It's not that I'm saying it's easy to coordinate the self-interest of all the players, but that is actually what happened. So something happened when we started doing this because we had more traffic, we had more usage for the exact same effort. Same effort, no additional cost, but more usage. Okay? So it started streamlining more rapidly. The unit cost started to go down because we had more traffic for the same extraction. And so we finally went from a situation where this sort of big chunk of information is clogged and can't reach all the end users, and some projects started instead becoming viable because of this. There are some steps that we needed to take in order to make this possible. It It's very recent as a project, but we already start to see projects that never entered the web scraping economy, put some money into accessing this data and benefiting the entire system. So let's see some examples. This might help. Okay, so this is a very young company from Canada. We'll just call it the ChatGPT of fashion. Basically, what they designed was to have a sort of a chat interface to ask how to dress. Okay, so you ask, I have a special occasion. What do I wear? What do I dress? And the system returns products suggested to purchase, and then the click goes to the e-commerce. So they needed the stream of e-commerce products with the link for the purchase, and then the ChatGPT-like model sort of handles the interpretation, tags it, and helps the search, and delivers to the end user. The team was of two, one expert of the AI part, one expert of fashion, no experts of web abstraction, so it was all in theory. In theory, it works, right? Unless you want a full extraction, because this works obviously if you have at least a couple of 100,000 of products to run your model on to test it, but there was no web scraping capability inside. There was actually no budget, okay? So, and being able to pull from our coordinated system that lets them take advantage of the fact that somebody already did that. And you could take a little bit use of something that already been done. Then they could pull into this data availability with this coordinated system and actually build the MVP right where they were. They did not need additional negotiations, additional hiring. They just could get this data and make the model work and prove that the model had something to do. And they actually built it, and then they started refreshing more regularly, and then they scaled up, and they become regular customers of ours. Another completely different example. This is a trend forecasting company from France this time. They have they read data and they forecast trends, as simple as that. They have huge web scraping capabilities in-house, so they scrape a lot. Okay, so there's no need. It's not the case like before where there was no web scraping capability in-house. There was no need for it, but they could not expand to new websites. I've heard in a speech before there was this difficulties of digesting a huge sudden request of data, okay? And the way they approached this collaboration layer, which at the end turns out being a marketplace, was to have a mix of first, what we call first-party data, things they still scrape in-house, and with a mix of third-party data, like a pool of websites that they can access that were already scraped by others. They can easily integrate and in a very elastic way expand and at least test the appeal on the end customer, because sometimes it's trials. You don't even know if the end customer is going to pay for the long run. Maybe they say, oh, okay, I want to add those XYZ countries, and then it wasn't a good idea, then don't pursue it. And that was extremely interesting to see how this mix is not something replacing it, is giving more elasticity. And then the final case, and this is I confess I was in Accenture, but that was more than 10 years ago, so I should be clean now. A large e-commerce service provider, they had this huge, large-scale monitoring project in the design since years and never got passed. With internal budget, it sounds great, but then when you start working through it, it just doesn't, numbers don't add up, and you never start. No matter how big the company is, and I was telling the Accenture thing because both in Accenture as well as in our clients, no matter how big the company is, projects start small. Projects start with constraints in budget. And if you start with a grandiose design, sometimes it's difficult to see the light. And the fact that it could leveraging things that others already did, it suddenly made sense. Of course, it's not going to solve all the requests. It's not going to solve all the needs. It doesn't have all the variables and every single detail of information you might have. but it certainly helps bring to light at least the MVP version of it and help it launch. So, okay, so but why does it happen? Why does it make sense before and why not? What is that marketplaces do that it's more difficult to do alone? Well, let's see what marketplaces roles are. What are they do? Okay, the first basic stuff is to help search. Buyers or data buyers enter and need to find a match for data sellers, and data providers or data sellers help being found. The most basic, if you don't have this, it's not even a marketplace. It's more an advantage for data sellers in the first place. For data buyers in web scraping, not that much, because it's very common to build it if you don't find it. So it's not that they wouldn't spend that much effort in searching for it. The next step would be also to negotiate in the same place the negotiation of the price and the payment. That will help. Execution and delivery, that will help as well. It's not a game changer, but trust. Trust would change. If a single platform would still give you access to a data, but then you have to do your due diligence, then you have to do the free trial, then you have to test how it is and perform your research on the provider and counterbalance and run your queue, your quality assurance on top of it. It's not a big advantage than having a direct contact with that seller, with that provider. It doesn't really change. So the way we saw it, in order to make things smooth, to sell, basically to sell more and to give higher volumes per single square, was to improve trust in it. And the way we saw it, so we said, okay, let's have a look at how other marketplaces solve the trust issue. So the things that needed to be addressed was, is data correct? Is data complete? We stay consistent over time, and for the especially for the investment use case, can I trust the provider assessment with the DDQ, with the data due diligence questionnaire they submit? So we will look at what other marketplaces do. And so in consumer use case, user reviews are often a good proxy for quality. We trust TripAdvisor suggestions on restaurants based on the stars because it's the best guess we can get, or on Airbnb or on other marketplaces. In B2B, it is present, but it's not as popular. It's not as common to find. There are not as many reviews, and sometimes it's difficult to trust them, right? Sometimes they might be biased. But the one thing that really struck us, in open communities, there's a peer review that makes it extremely solid to trust the network where you're sourcing from. So we try to think, how can we apply peer review in our system? Because quality control is difficult to scale if done centrally. It is really, really difficult. While peer review can be sustainable, because if each node helps in ensuring the resilience of the entire network, it is something that is feasible scaling, and most of all is mutually reinforcing. I, as a node, will help reviewing the quality with tasks that need to be defined and agreed upon, will help also my reputation, because the reputation of the network grows. So basically, what we put in place was a low-effort controls on the results of each node against the results of the other scrapes. I'm not happy to go more in detail in the questions now, just for the sake of time, not going too much in detail in this. But the main point is that there are controls that can be automated and the controls that cannot. We ask the help of each node to contribute with low-effort checks on the result of the others. And this proved, that was very interesting, because this allowed the entire network to be more engaged into participating, because they totally agree that the end buyer needs to trust the data and just to get it straight straight from the platform and not conducting any additional Q&A, which they will conduct anyway, but at least you get one step farther in the trust path. So if I had to wrap it up in the key elements of what the marketplace brings to the data commerce, independent marketplace help building trust if of course they find a way to make the network work together. If it's they drive more usage to web data, which is the end result we are all looking for, because extractions are becoming more expensive. And in order to make it affordable to build the latest tool, the latest, most expensive tool, in order to get past that data, I need to have more sales on that. I have to have more usage, more traffic. It helps, and this is what we found. It helps grow the market. It lets in the market use cases that never got in. And often, even the biggest use cases start small. Even the largest project in large multinational and even startups start really small before scaling up and using those data. But you have to let them start. If the CapEx, if the original investment is too high, those projects never see the light. Of course, revenue per extraction, and attract and reward good quality work. Since this mutually reinforcement quality assessment, quality is rewarded. Consistency in time and quality is rewarded. And at the end of the day, what we tried to build when designing this data boutique was to make the entire web scraping collection a little bit more efficient in this, and not everyone remaking similar tasks. We're sure we don't cover the entire use cases, but some of it, yes, we are sure of it. That was it. That's what you were expecting of.
I have one question
Yes.
about the data quality piece of it.
Yeah.
Obviously, a few other people have questions, but my question is, do you kind of leave it up to each of the providers to, kind of monitor the data and ensure its quality, or do you kind of layer on some tools and, monitoring as part of the marketplace itself?
Okay, so I take also that question plus the legal one, since our solution was to have fixed schemas. Okay, so the fixed schema helps both ways in understanding what goes through, in terms of not accepting PII or trying to cut out IP covered information, but as well in data quality. If you have a fixed schema, you can have domain controls and you can have statistics on how this changes over time. So yes, we do trust the provider, but no, we don't trust the provider. So we have a stack in place to have some very transparently with what controls are pursued, with what is the real-time response on those controls, and also being transparent to the buyer so that at least they know what controls have been done. And if something else is broken, at least they know the exact scope of the controls that we do.
Okay, and so there's a follow-on question about what happens if a data feed stops being available?
Okay, so the marketplace has different options. Data could be uploaded one-off, or could be uploaded on recurrently, so let's say on a maximum of, at the moment, on a daily basis. And all we know is the past and the reliability over time, and we make this transparent, but we make no commitment in assuring the future of the data set. So I know this is a bit of a change of perspective in SLA contracts over time, but this is a step towards at least going forward in one direction. We are aware it doesn't solve the 100% of the scope of current data contracts.
Okay, so the second one down here from Constantine, if everyone could publicly advertise which websites they scrape, would this make the global market more efficient?
If everyone could publicly advertise which website they scrape? Meaning if The way I understood it, okay, let's put it this way. The way I understood it, if each data scraper could tell which provider, yes, absolutely, absolutely. The advantage of doing it in the marketplace and not only separate in a forum would be that it also adheres to standards in schema, adheres to standards in quality. So you know that if you buy it from there, it has the same shape, and like Lego, it just sticks one on top of the others. But yes, absolutely, it would be already a step forward in doing that. So at least we don't rescrape the same website, which was the original idea, yes.
And we have another one here on, second one down, most projects need a data stream that's delivered regularly when buying from a marketplace. Can I get this guarantee that data will be delivered regularly?
So again, similar to the previous question, we give a rating of the time series punctuality and the reliability of the providers. Okay, we are totally transparent on who the provider is. So in case there are more stringent and contact directly with the providers, this can be, of course, done off the platform. But the platform does not commit in SLAs in the future. Of course, it gives a proxy, giving, okay, this data contract has been reliable 99.9% in the past X months, but that's where it stops for the moment.
And is there anything just on the second one down there about anything else that you want to maybe add about the kind of the legal implications of a data marketplace?
Yeah, so it's not an open marketplace like AWS Data Exchange is not like Azure, it's not like Snowflake data marketplace. It's a fixed scope and fixed schema, well-defined scope that can be uploaded. So there are, we talked before, there was in the legal speech before, the e-commerces on prices. So where the fixed schema defines very exactly what kind of fields are accepted. And before we approve one website to be listed, we look that it's publicly available, that all the products do not lie behind login walls, and there's a roboticity that allows that. So we try to stay on of course, everyone was asking how to list LinkedIn, and we had to say no.
So there's an interesting one here about, the scraper antibot arms race end game here, and and I suppose the question is, if I interpret it correctly, do you think the marketplaces might be an answer to this arms race? As in, if my websites even whitelist the marketplace provider.
Might websites even whitelist marketplace provider?
As in, I'm assuming the question is that this would be the only place that people would go to get the data, and you just do it once rather than everybody doing it and grabbing the data.
No. As I said before, it doesn't cover the entire spectrum of needs. Okay, it covers a good chunk of it. What we'd like to achieve is that the same effort, or even more money today spent on web scraping, but on overlapping websites, more money was spent in capturing other websites. And someone today said that the long tail of it, instead of concentrating all on the same bigger players, but same or even more budget being spent in collecting also the others to have a clearer picture of data. I hope this answers.
So last question, and I'm just going to pick this one because you mentioned it before about the coordination layer. Who coordinates the coordination layer, and how are responsibilities shared?
Okay, so that's an interesting one. At the moment, the Data Boutique does the coordination, but the plan is to pass all in smart contracts that are auditable, so that the rules are clear to everyone and is totally transparent in what exactly are the rules. It's a work in progress. We didn't start long ago, but the target plan is this: total transparency of what are the rules, especially for the buyers, because we want that. In the financial industry, for example, there are more stringent rules. So you need to know what's already been checked and what's left to be checked, and maybe you check the rest. But at least you know what's been covered by that.
Brilliant. Thanks very much.
Thank you.